What's up guys, I'm ImSidVicious and welcome back. I wanted to give you an update on how my League start has been going so far with the Ice Spear and Freezing Pulse Totem Hierophant. This build has honestly been such a blast to play. It's smooth, powerful, and surprisingly cheap to get online at the moment. From the very beginning, the build felt solid. I swapped the Freezing Pulse and Ice Spear when I hit maps. I got Soul Mantle, and after a few chaos later, I got myself Anathemas, and our mapping experience was a breeze. Even with a 4-link setup, I was able to clear comfortably. I was able to get 2 Void Stones from Eater and Exarch with this 4-link, and I spent roughly around 60C. What I love about this build is how reliable it feels. The totem playstyle makes it very easy with auto targeting. Then we also chill everything with all our cold damage and cold setup, and just watch all the packs of enemies just disappear. The bosses melt as soon as you get your curses set up. It's really satisfying how all the pieces come together to scale big time damage. Right now I'm a few days in and I'm limit testing the build, mapping fast on 8 modded maps, doing some invitations, some bossing, and there's still a lot more I want to test. Mercenaries, awakened gems, and even some endgame gear. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through how I progressed day 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to talk about my gear upgrades, what made the biggest impacts. I'm going to talk about my mercenary setup and the ones I'm theory crafting next. The Atlas tree that I'm using to currency farm, and where I plan to take this build in the next few days. So let's jump into the progression because there's a lot to go over. Okay, just to quickly talk about our day 1, I started with Holy Flame Totems. I pretty much used that all the way up till the end of the campaign, and then I got myself a Soul Mantle and I immediately swapped to Freezing Pulse and Ice Spear. And then by hour 12, I was already mapping at level 75. I had picked up Anathemas for about like 20 chaos. It's a bit more expensive, but it's really important to prioritize this item in your progression. This ring is going to be there all the way till the end, so it's worth investing in this early as you can. I also ended up buying a +2 Soul Mantle for 1 Divine, which is basically like 5 chaos right now. Anywhere from 5 to like 40 chaos if like some of them go out of supply. But I really like this new PoE ninja feature where it kind of breaks it down by the hours and the days, so you can kind of see like where all the progression is happening in my character. Also, for my weapon, I got a couple of cheap scepters, and these were a big power spike in my damage as well. I was able to get them for cheap, and I was looking for a +1 to cold and looking for 2 or 3 useful stats on it, like cast speed, crit multi, spell damage, cold damage, and if there's an open slot, I would try to craft one of these mods on top of the scepter itself. Now for the 4-link setup, it was blasting through white and yellow maps completely fine, and once I got to red maps, I started to invest in picking up level 21 Ice Spear and Freezing Pulse. This is all you need in order to use a level 21 gem. It's just level 72 and some currencies, and they're going very cheap on the market right now. You can pick them up really easily. And if you want to look for, if you have some currency and if you can get a 2120 gem, it's going to be really good because you don't have to think about it for the rest of the game. It's going to carry you again to the end game setup. For our 4-link, we have Freezing Pulse, GMP, multi-totem, and crit damage, and I would swap in Ice Spear whenever I needed single target damage. Now, one of the core 2 mechanics I want to talk about for our build that I'm getting asked a lot of questions about is the Cold Snap setup and the Curse setup. So let's talk about the Cold Snap setup first. So the Cold Snap setup is actually mainly for Bone Chill, right? So the Bone Chill tech We use Cold Snap with Bone Chill plus Unbound Ailments, and then we also add in Culling Strike whenever we get the chance. The way we utilize Cold Snap right now is it's just a primer, and we use it to get our Bone Chill effect on our target. And Bone Chill, basically what it does, it increases our chill effect and damage taken from cold sources. So our cold sources are our damage coming out of the totems. And then Unbound Ailments scales the effect of our non-damaging ailments like chill, so we get a higher chill effect. And then obviously Culling Strike is just nice to quickly execute bosses at the end. This allows our Ice Spear and Freezing Pulse to scale a lot of damage through the chill. And once we get Heat Shiver, this is going to be even more potent. And now for our Anathemas and Curse setup. So with Anathemas, what we can do is we could run 4 curses using Arcanist Brand. So in the beginning, we're just going to be using Elemental Weakness, Frostbite, and Sniper's Mark. And then once we get a 5 link, we can add Punishment. And the 5 link is going to come from our staff since we're using Scepters in the early progression. Essentially with our curses, we just get a huge massive resistance penetration and a damage buff on anything we curse. And we use this primarily for bosses or anything that is annoying us and has a high HP. For our day 2 setup, we didn't progress that much because I had some IRL stuff, but I went from 85 to 87, so small progress, but we did get Self-Flagellation Jewel that I added. Also, we were able to defeat Eater and Exarchs and get my 2 Void Stones, and I did this with a 4 link setup, and I used level 21 gems. It was a bit of a challenge, but it was easy enough for the build. For my day 3, this is where we got the massive power spike, so this is where I 6 link my Soul Mantle. I actually made a big mistake, so I ended up spending a lot of currency. Hopefully, you get your 6 link without spending too much, but we added Hypothermia and added Cold into my 6 link. We also bought Annihilating Light for 3 divines, which is much cheaper now. I think I was seeing them for about a divine or so for a well-rolled one. You want to get it with 60% reduce. You want to get it as low as possible. Try to get at least 61 because we're going to have a lot of resistance pressure. We really need to get a low reduction on our resistance from our Annihilating Light. Now for our other rare gear, because we got Annihilating Light, we want to try to get high res items. So our helmet was triple resist. I got this for about 70 chaos. Our new ring was about like 30 to 50 chaos. And we also got some Alva gloves for around 30 chaos, which gives us some life, and also the stat increased damage to chilled enemies. Like I said earlier, we had level 21 gems, but this time I bought level 21 with 20 quality for Ice Spear. It's really nice to get with quality because it does help both Ice Spear and Freezing Pulse, so it's important to get them with quality, not just level 21. We also had some big upgrades for our jewels. I was able to get Rain of Splinters for 3.3 div. This is gonna kind of go up in price, and then it's gonna settle a little bit down, but this is a very expensive jewel. I was able to get some some cluster jewels. We got a large cluster with Prismatic Heart for some damage and elemental resistance. We got ourselves a medium eye to eye with the repeater, so that's really good for projectile damage. For our Sleepless Sentries medium cluster, it was a little expensive. We spent about 120 chaos at the time, but this should drop in price over the coming days. I was also lucky enough to pick up a Sublime Vision, which is the one that we want is with Zealotry, which gives us curse immunity, and it was actually 39% increased effect, so that's really nice. And I got it for 9 divines. It's roughly around this price range right now, from like 7 to 12 divine, but this thing is gonna go more and more expensive as the league goes on. So it's gonna go from like what it is right now to at least 20, 30, 40 divines as the days go on. So if you can pick this up early, it's gonna be really nice because it provides a lot of quality of life and some damage as well. Okay, let's talk about my Atlas strategy and mapping. So for my starting currency strategy, I use my Blight setup. I have a video on how to make your first divine, and in this video I use up to 50 Atlas points, and this is when you get your second Atlas tree. So I was trying to make a strategy around that, and I tweaked it a little bit because I don't want to just stick to spending 50 points, right? Since in a league start scenario, I am getting more points and I'm progressing past the white maps and yellow maps into red maps, I want to keep including this strategy into that progression as well. So I spent some of the extra points that I got into Beyond, but that didn't work too well, and I switched out of Beyond. It was really rippy and it was also hurting my GPU. So I focused on getting red altars and heist. And finally, the full version of that Atlas tree was trying to get some map tiers and increase map effect. And basically the idea is to just do your maps as normally as you would, whatever tier you can, so white or yellow or red, and try to get some blighted maps, and then go to the blighted maps and farm out blighted maps using sepia oil to just kind of make the towers be super cheap. Now basically I'm transitioning into the Invitation Atlas setup, and this is to farm Maven Riths, Guardian Invitation, and then also use Destructive Play. So, you know, I'm gonna be streaming that and kind of making a video on that as soon as I can. Yeah, so I'm gonna utilize sort of like both of these Atlas trees. The Blight setup actually is really good for farming gold. So, you know, there's a couple scarabs you can try out and it will help you get a lot of gold on, it'll help you get a lot of gold from maps, and I might make a strategy around that as well to kind of just show you how much gold you can make. And it's like also a switch up. I like to kind of juggle 2 strategies, right, to just kind of have more fun with the game. Okay, let's talk about what my current build looks like. So currently I just imported my character into Path of Building, and I've been doing some gem swapping between Freezing Pulse and Ice Spear. So depending on the content, right, single target, Ice Spear, Freezing Pulse, clear, or mapping. Right now I'm using Ice Spear, which is 2120, and in our DPS, you know, you want to set Ice Spear to second form all projectiles. That's the faster form after the projectile travels a short distance. So this is a number that we want to actually calculate, and we're sitting around 16 mil DPS initially. We want to also turn on Arcane Surge on our config tab. This is going to account for a lot of our damage, and the reason why we have Arcane Surge is from our Ascendancy, and it basically says anytime our totem fires a skill, you know, we're going to get Arcane Surge. You can see it in my gameplay. I have Arcane Surge up 100% of the time, and we also have increased effect of Arcane Surge. So this just effectively kind of almost doubles our damage here, and this pushes our damage to the 40 mil plus range. Now for our flash setup, we've recently picked up Dying Sun and Bottle Fate, and they're doing a lot of work. So Dying Sun actually increases our projectile count by a lot, so it goes from 8 to 11 in total, and you want to use the flash effect scaling. It doesn't have to be perfectly rolled, it just needs to have the increased flash effect to get us to the third projectile basically, and this is like a 37% increased damage, which is a massive damage boost. And pretty much you're gonna use these flasks for bossing, right? And you only need a couple seconds for their uptime to be effective. Bottle Faith is really nice. It adds this consecrated ground, which synergizes really well with Arcane Surge. And we want to go to our config tab again and turn on enemies is on consecrated ground, and you'll see that we will get that extra damage that we're coming from. Also, the flask gives us crit chance, right? So with the higher increased effect, we actually want to get 70% flash effect on this because it will give us more damage, it'll give us more crit chance. And because the flask itself gives us triple the radius, it's actually nice for bossing because most of the bossing arenas and invitations are small. So if you pop the flask somewhere in the middle of the arena, it's going to cover the whole thing and bosses are going to stand on it, and you're going to have pretty much 100% crit chance. You're going to have your damage uptime as well. And if we are achieving 100% crit chance just from the flask itself, this opens up some passive points, and also our crit flask, we don't need to use a diamond flask, it's redundant. We can swap to Quicksilver for movement speed, or we could even swap to Progenesis for extra survivability if we need it. For our gear, just to quickly go through it, we have Annihilating Light, which is 3 times the damage. We have our rare helmet, gloves, and boots, and ring to pretty much help our resistance. Rain of Splinters, large cluster jewels, self-flagellation. Gems, we want to move towards the awakened versions of the gems soon to get like added cold for +1 and more damage. We can also add in Vol Righteous Fire, and this will again be another button to press for bossing, and it'll give us a massive damage boost for a short amount of time. Pretty much our next goal when it comes to gearing is to pick up that Heat Shiver. It's a little tricky because of the resistance requirements, but in order to handle that, what we'll look to do is craft a 12 passive cluster jewel, and this should help us with our resistance. We're also going to try to grab a Militant Fate to get some more spell damage as well, and then we'll also try to pick up a Watcher's Eye. Let's talk mercenaries. This is super important for mapping utility and defense scaling. This is the new league, right? So we want to talk about mercenaries and what kind of setup is really good for our build. So right now I'm running a Kinetic Blast and Haste mercenary. Kinetic Blast is one of the best mercenaries out there right now, unless something changes. Kinetic Blast basically like provides really good clear speed. The Haste Aura is really nice because it gives us cast speed and movement speed. Basically, I think what you need for this mercenary is you need to find a all 3 stat mercenary, and that's how you'll find Kinetic Blast. And then also this makes it so that you could put a bunch of different types of gear. I haven't added too much. All I've added on her is Leer Cast, which basically gives 50% damage to our cells, right? Which is a massive DPS boost. I want to upgrade the mercenary by giving it Asenath's Gloves, which gives temp chains on hit, and Course Explosion, which is just really nice. Also, I'm looking to find a Frostbomb mercenary. So this Kinetic Blast one is really nice, but I really want a mercenary with Frostbomb and is intelligence based, so I can give it this wand which makes it so that whenever the mercenary uses Frostbomb, it gives an additional cold exposure, so that could be a massive DPS boost for our bossing. There's also this shield that will help us get Profane Ground, and the shield is really nice but we need a mercenary that creates consecrated ground. What the shield does is it converts the consecrated ground to profane ground, which profane ground, what it does is it increases curse effect, which is amazing synergy with our triple curse build, because curse is actually how we get a majority of our damage. Now I have another mercenary which I'm experimenting with, is a tanky support mercenary. So this one has determination aura. I gave the mercenary a belt that gives it 54% aura effect of determination, so that's really nice. I gave it a chest piece that gives it increased aura effect as well, and then I also gave it a helmet that removes 8% of the enemy life from the top end. Again, could be really good for bosses. I need to test this out with all bosses, but I see that it works fine with mobs, so I see it to work on bosses as well. As for the amulet, I gave it this Rash Kadar's amulet, which basically makes it so that it gives it a shock, and if we can have this mercenary shock for us, then we have increased damage with our spells. Again, more damage, which is nice. And then, like I said, I really like temp chains, so I gave it some gloves with a corrupted implicit that's temp chains on hit, and it's working out pretty well. And yeah, that's pretty much it for our mercenary setup. There's still a lot of room to experiment with the gear and utility with what these mercenaries can offer. That wraps up the build update. The build is in a great spot, the scaling is kicking in, and the mercenary options are opening up for multiple playstyles. If you need help with your PoB or with the build, stop by the stream. I'll take a look at it and help you optimize. Thank you guys for watching. Feel free to subscribe, like, and comment on the video, and I'll catch you on the next update or live stream.